Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to Shloka a Day. Today we'll cover two shlokas, shloka 6 and 7 of chapter 13. Mahabhutanyahangkaraha
Mahabhutanyahangkaraha
buddhiravyaktameva cha
Buddhiravyaktameva cha
indriyani dashaikam cha
Indriyani dashaikam cha
panchachendriyagocharaha
Panchachendriyagocharaha
Ichha dvesha sukham dukkham
Ichha dvesha sukham dukkham
Sanghataschetana dhritihi
Sanghataschetana dhritihi
Etat kshetram samasena
Etat kshetram samasena
Savikaram udahritam.
Savikaram udahritam.
Word for word meaning, translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.
Mahabhutani,
Mahabhutani,
the great elements.
the great elements.
Ahankaraha,
Ahankaraha,
false ego.
false ego.
Buddhihi,
Buddhihi,
intelligence.
intelligence.
Avyaktam,
Avyaktam,
the unmanifested.
the unmanifested.
Eva,
Eva,
certainly.
certainly.
Cha,
Cha,
also.
also.
Indriyani,
Indriyani,
the senses.
the senses.
Dasha ekam,
Dasha ekam,
11.
11.
Cha,
Cha,
also.
also.
Pancha,
Pancha,
5.
5.
Cha,
Cha,
also.
also.
Indriya gocharaha,
Indriya gocharaha,
the objects of the senses.
the objects of the senses.
Ichha,
Ichha,
desire.
desire.
Dveshaha,
Dveshaha,
hatred.
hatred.
Sukham,
Sukham,
happiness.
happiness.
Dukkham,
Dukkham,
distress.
distress.
Sanghataha,
Sanghataha,
the aggregate.
the aggregate.
Chetana,
Chetana,
living symptoms.
living symptoms.
Dhritihi,
Dhritihi,
conviction.
conviction.
Etat,
Etat,
all this.
all this.
Kshetram,
Kshetram,
the field of activities.
the field of activities.
Samasena,
Samasena,
in summary.
in summary.
Savikaram,
Savikaram,
interactions.
with interactions.
Udahritam,
Udahritam,
exemplified.
exemplified.
Translation: the 5 great elements.
The 5 great elements:
False ego,
false ego,
intelligence,
intelligence,
the unmanifested,
the unmanifested,
the 10 senses,
the 10 senses,
and the mind,
the
5 sense objects,
the 5 sense objects,
desire, hatred, happiness,
desire, hatred, happiness,
distress, the aggregate, the life symptoms,
distress, the aggregate, the life symptoms,
and convictions.
and convictions.
All these are considered,
in
summary, to be the field of activities and its interactions.
To be the field of activities and its interactions.
Prabhupada writes, from all the authoritative statements of the great sages, the Vedic hymns and the aphorisms of Vedanta Sutra, the components of this world can be understood as follows. First, there are earth, water, fire, air, and ether. These are the 5 great elements, Mahabhuta. Then there are false ego, intelligence, and the unmanifested stage of the 3 modes of nature. Those are the 3 gunas. Then there are 5 senses for acquiring knowledge: the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. Then 5 working senses: voice, legs, hands, anus, and genitals. Then above the senses, there is the mind, which is within and which can be called the sense within. Therefore, including the mind, there are 11 senses altogether. Then there are the 5 objects of the senses: smell, taste, form, touch, and sound. Now, the aggregate of these 24 elements is called the field of activity. If one makes an analytical study of these 24 subjects, then he can very well understand the field of activity. Then there are desire, hatred, happiness, and distress, which are interactions, representations of the 5 great elements in the gross body. The living symptoms represented by consciousness and convictions are the manifestation of the subtle body, mind, ego, and intelligence. These subtle elements are included within the field of activities. The 5 great elements are a gross representation of the false ego, which in turn represents the primal stage of false ego, technically called the material conception or tamasa buddhi, intelligence and ignorance. This further represents the unmanifested state of the 3 modes of material nature. The unmanifested modes of material nature are called pradhana. One who desires to know the 24 elements in detail, along with their interactions, should study the philosophy in more detail. In Bhagavad Gita, a summary only is given. The body is the representation of all these factors, and there are changes of the body which are 6 in number. The body is born, it grows, it stays, it produces byproducts, then it begins to decay, and at the last stage it vanishes. Therefore, the field is a non permanent material thing. However, the kshetrajna, the knower of the field, its proprietor, is different. So that concludes Prabhupada's purport. Now, looking at a couple of other commentaries, including from His Grace Chaitanya Prabhu. So, essentially, the Lord is saying these 24 elements constitute the field of activity. So, how is that split? Although Prabhupada has explained it in the purport, we can just see it in a slightly bulleted form. So, the Pancha Mahabhuta are 5: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Then you have the subtle aspects, which is the false ego, intelligence, and the pradhana, the unmanifested stage of the 3 modes of nature. 3 modes of nature means the 3 gunas. 5 jnana indriyas: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. And then you include the mind in it, which makes it 5. Yes, and the 5 karma indriyas: voice, legs, hands, anus, and genitals. The sense is within the mind, so that's counted as 1. So, including the mind, there are 11 senses. Then you have the 5 objects of the senses: smell, taste, form, touch, and sound. Like this: 5, 10, 15, 20, 24. 24 elements. From another parampara, a little bit about the koshas, and we'll look at one more commentary also. The 24 elements that constitute the field of activities are Pancha Mahabhuta, the 5 gross elements, the Pancha Tanmatras, the 5 sense objects, and the 5 working senses, Pancha Indriyas. The 5 knowledge senses: mind, intellect, ego, and prakriti, the primordial form of the material energy. Shri Krishna uses the word dashaikam, 10 plus 1, to indicate the 11 senses. In these, he includes the mind along with the 5 knowledge senses and the 5 working senses. Previously, in verse 10.22, he had mentioned that amongst the senses, he is the mind. One may wonder why the 5 sense objects have been included in the field of activities when they exist outside the body. The reason is that the mind contemplates upon the sense objects, and these 5 sense objects reside in a subtle form in the mind. That is why, while sleeping, when we dream with our mind, In our dream state, we see, hear, feel, taste, and smell, even though our gross senses are resting on the bed. This illustrates that the gross objects of the senses also exist mentally in the subtle form. Sri Krishna has included them here because he is referring to the entire field of activity for the soul. Some other scriptures exclude the five sense objects while describing the body. Instead, they include the five pranas, or the life airs. This is merely a matter of classification and not a philosophical difference. The same knowledge is also explained in terms of sheets. Sheets means coverings. The field of the body has five koshas, sheets that cover the soul that is ensconced within. Prabhupada has described these five koshas in an earlier shloka in the 13th chapter. But just as a quick review, Annamaya kosha, it is the gross sheet consisting of the five gross elements. Pranamaya kosha, it is the life airs sheet consisting of the five life airs, prana, apana, vyana, samana, and udana. Manomaya kosha, it is the mental sheet consisting of the mind and the five working senses. Then Vijnanamaya kosha, it is the intellectual sheet consisting of the intellect and the five knowledge senses. I think Prabhupada had put it as Jnana kosha and Vijnana kosha. Anandamaya kosha, it is the bliss sheet which consists of the ego that makes us identify with the tiny bliss of the body, mind, intellect, mechanism. So these are about the koshas or the sheets. What about the attributes of the kshetra? Krishna says, what is the body? It's the field of activities. But it is much more than that. The body undergoes 6 transformations until death. Prabhupada has already explained it, but you have the Sanskrit words here. Asti means coming into existence. Jayate means birth. Vardhate meaning growth. Viparinamate, reproduction. Apakshiyate, withering with age. Vinashyati, death. The body supports the soul in its quest for happiness in the world or in God as the soul guides it. Consciousness. It is the life force that exists in the soul and which it also imparts to the body while it is present in it. So without the soul, there cannot be any consciousness. This is just as fire has the ability to heat, and if we put an iron rod into it, the rod too becomes red hot with the heat it receives from the fire. Similarly, the soul makes the body seem lifelike by imparting the quality of consciousness in it. Sri Krishna thus includes consciousness as a trait of the field of activities. But consciousness does not come from matter. Consciousness comes from the spirit soul. Will. This is the determination that keeps the constituent elements of the body active and focused in a particular direction. It is the will that enables the soul to achieve goals through the field of activities. The will is a quality of the intellect, which is energized by the soul. Variations in the will, due to the influence of Sattvagun, Rajagun, and Tamagun, are described in verses 18.33 to 18.35. So, depending how your will is influenced by the gunas, then you will act in a particular way. Either you'll have determination or you will not have determination. Desire. This is a function of the mind and the intellect, which creates a longing for the acquisition of an object, a situation, a person, etc. In discussing the body, we would probably take desire for granted, but imagine how different the nature of life would have been if there were no desires. So, the Supreme Lord who designed the field of activities and included desire as part of it naturally makes special mention of it. The intellect analyzes the desirability of an object, and the mind harbors its desires. When one becomes self realized, all material desires are extinguished, and now the purifying mind harbors the desire for God. While material desires are the cause of bondage, spiritual desires lead to liberation. Then Krishna talks about dvesha, aversion. It is the state of the mind and intellect that creates revulsion for objects, persons, and situations that are disagreeable to it. and seeks to avoid them. So, Icha and Dvesha. Then, happiness. This is a feeling of pleasure that is experienced in the mind through agreeable circumstances and fulfillment of desires. Sukham. The mind perceives the sensations of happiness, and the soul does so along with it because it identifies with the mind. However, material happiness never satiates the hunger of the soul, which remains discontented until it experiences the infinite divine bliss of God. Then, dukkham, misery. It is the pain experienced in the mind through disagreeable circumstances. So, in the upcoming shlokas, Krishna is going to describe the virtues and attributes that will enable one to cultivate knowledge and thereby fulfill the purpose of the field of activities, which is human form. So, Kshetra and Kshetrajna have been described so far. So, in the upcoming shlokas, we're going to be looking at Jnana and Jnana.
If you like our videos, please subscribe to our channel and turn on the bell notification. If you'd like to join our classes every day, please check the details in the description section of this video. We look forward to serving you.